Campaigners say Indonesia's new morality laws, given the green light by Parliament, are a major setback to human rights in the world's most populous Muslim country. The most eye-catching measure, a clause that would outlaw sex before marriage. Now, under the law, sex outside of marriage will be punished with 1 year in prison, although it must be reported by a family member, and the law will not come into effect for 3 years. Unmarried people living together could face 6 months in jail. But more broadly, spreading an ideology different to the official one could get 4 years in prison. And there is a new clause against insulting the president as well. In all, it represents a major shift in a country that's seeing growing Islamic influence in recent decades. Our correspondent in Jakarta is Valdia Baraputri. She's at Indonesia's parliament in Jakarta.
For sex outside of marriage, the imprisonment is maximum up to 1 year, and for the cohabitation is up to 6 months. However, the only parties who can file the complaints are the spouses of these individuals who commit now crime or the parents. So as you also mentioned, that this new set of laws are applied not only to Indonesians but also foreign visitors. So for example, if a foreign visitor engaged in sex outside of marriage with an Indonesian, then the spouse or the parents of the Indonesian can file a complaint if they chose to do so. As I said, the new set of law will take effect a maximum of 3 years, and during that time, the public can take the articles they see as problematic to the Supreme Court.
Thanks very much to Valdia. Well, I'm joined now by Phil Robertson, who is the Deputy Director of the Asia Division of Human Rights Watch. Great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Phil, why do you think this passed now when it didn't in 2019 when it was last up for approval?
Well, we've got a vice president, particularly, who's been pushing very hard for this law. He's from a very conservative Islamic party, and he has been constantly advocating for it. I think that also the pause after the COVID-19 pandemic created a situation where there was a sort of break in the action. There was a lot of momentum against the law in 2019, street protests and what have you, that were able to stop the law. Now they basically snuck it through, and it's got insanely intrusive provisions that violate basic rights to privacy that all people should enjoy. It's outrageous and unacceptable.
So what happens then? You talk about those street protests the last time that have not happened this time. What do you expect the trajectory to be?
Well, I think there's going to be shock across the world that this has actually happened, that they're talking about, for instance, criminalizing any sex outside of marriage and sending people to prison. I think that we will see a major hit on Indonesian tourism. I'm sitting in Bali at a conference, and already people at the hotel that I'm staying at are raising concerns about this and are, saying this is going to blow up Indonesian tourism. I think there's a lot of concern in the international business community, and that will probably affect international investment coming into Indonesia as well. I mean, this is an incredibly broad law. To criminalize sex outside of marriage, I mean, you're talking about, impacting women across the country, because every pregnancy outside of wedlock is automatically going to be considered a crime if it's reported.
But what can be done then if people did want to push back against it, and it may be popular in many quarters as well? Do you expect lawsuits?
Well, I expect that there will be a number of challenges that are made against provisions of this law. They'll claim that it's unconstitutional. And there is going to be a 3-year period where a lot of this is going to be sorted out. But I think it's going to really sort of be cheered on by some of the very conservative elements of Indonesia that want to change this country, that want to basically take it away from the post-Suharto period when we had significant advances on human rights. They want to really sort of suppress women's rights. They want to basically control privacy. They want to control the families. It is a situation where I think that we're going to see a major back and forth in society, a very divisive time as they try to flesh out some of these provisions in this very ill-considered law.
So, but do you expect it To remain, Phil, just briefly?
It's hard to say. I mean, I can't really predict what the Supreme Court's going to say, but I mean, you've got blasphemy chapters in here. You've got creation of provisions that will say any sort of local law is considered a living law that needs to be followed, including Sharia laws that, for instance, discriminate against women. Set out curfews against women, how they dress, restrict their freedom of movement. The ban insulting the president. All these things will be very difficult to overturn.
Let us see where it goes. Phil Robertson, thanks so much for joining us here on Live.